with Jay Taylor and Heather Dell on WJZZ Cool TV. Thanks for tuning in. Every Thursday from 4 to 5, we talk about real information for real people about real estate. A little bit of fun, a little bit of everything, a little bit of investing stuff. We usually start the show out. Jay and I were just saying we're having a crazy day. Normally, this time of year, I say people have the Christmas crazies, but it's the Christmas crazies, the COVID crazies, the election crazies. There's a lot going on. So it was a busy day. I don't know, I'm having one of those, like, I'm in love with Detroit real estate days. You have those days?
Every day.
Yeah, but you know how some days I walk into this house, which brings us to our deal of the day, or one of the hot tips. Brand new, well, not brand new, soon to market. You want to give us a call. It's over on Shaner. Beautiful house getting renovated. 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, egress in the basement, windows. You can call me, 248-464-1116, or Jay.
Am I giving you my phone number?
Yeah.
Right now?
Why not?
All right, 313-410-1149.
What's the difference if we put it on a billboard on I-75 or say it over the, right?
I guess you're right.
Yeah, of course I'm right.
It feels weird that some person who doesn't live here might be listening to this radio station.
Well, that's good, though, because we're on the Zillow.
Absolutely we are.
We're on the Zillow, and we're on all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, you can give us a call about that. The East Side's getting a little bit hotter, which is kind of interesting. Or maybe it's just because I live on the East Side now. But anyway, to that end, I love Detroit real estate. It was just a whole bunch of stuff. So I go, this guy that I knew that I sold a house to, who called me, and then I sold a $20,000 house to his niece who couldn't get help, and then that turned into $500,000 in business to you. But whatever. It was all, good karma and stuff. So he just called me out of the blue. He's like, I got 2 houses I need to sell. And he does renovations. So that one's coming up over there. And what was so fun today is I walk in, and he's got his guys, and they're in their dungarees, their Carhartts, and they're working. And every single one of them is like 7 feet tall and just size 15 shoe, and they all look like NBA players. And they're listening to the Nutcracker.
Oh, like the classical Nutcracker.
Tchaikovsky, so loud that as I'm parked outside walking into the house, and I walk in, and it's just this scene, and I was like, this is such a cool town. This is such a cool job.
Yeah.
So that's what I got going on. What's your hot tip of the day? Neighborhood of the day.
Neighborhood of the day. Downtown Detroit.
Oh.
We're talking Central Business District.
Fancy.
I can tell you right now.
He's bougie.
New developments that are coming up to downtown. We're talking within the 375 to the Lodge, south of 75. You're nestled right into Quicken headquarters, Blue Cross Blue Shield headquarters, Tigers, Pistons, Red Wings. Like,
Google.
You're there.
Little Caesars.
In that area, new developments are going to be hitting at the $600 to $620 per square foot. So we're
okay, wait. So in the same city where you can get a house for $6.50 a square foot, we now have luxury at this level.
Yep.
Say it again.
$610 to $620 per square foot.
Okay, if that's not enough motivation to want to buy in Detroit for both the right reasons and the money reasons, although money reasons can be right reasons, but for the right reasons, the whole don't just make money, be part of history. So what just sold on there? Tell me about it. Sounds fabulous.
Well, so I'm going to give a little background. This is a neighborhood where recently, as early as 2011, you could buy real estate in that same corridor for $30 a square foot. And it has 20x'd from 30 to 600. So we're saying the growth of that area is unparalleled. It's beautiful to watch. And so this, newly renovated entire floor of a building makes up one condo. It's it's a little over 3,000 square feet, going for, this building right now is the only one in the entire area selling a unit like this, and they're only going at like $515 a square foot.
Mm-hmm.
So we know other units are hitting the market in the 600s per square foot, and this building being somewhat unique in its location, right across from the Opera House, less than a block from Detroit Athletic Club, next door to the YMCA,
Nice.
Everything within reach. This beautiful building is selling in the 515s. So Today I got to watch one of those go under contract. There are 2 more, and if you're looking at getting a great deal in Detroit, grab a unit in this building before the only available pricing in downtown is in the 600s per square foot. This one, fully renovated with state-of-the-art everything in the 500s, is still a really good deal.
And for people who aren't in Detroit or don't live around here, a lot of Jay and I have got people all over, right? We've lived in different places. When we talk about the city, one of the biggest benefits to living in a city is the walkability, right? You don't have to get your car, deal with your car. That is an imminently walkable area. There's so much, you know, you can get out. The sidewalks are great. There's tons of restaurants and bars. There's shops. There's a couple great galleries, Robert King Galleries right down there. The Siren Hotel with the bubble room, the pink room, bubble room. So many great things down there. So,
well, and this building happens to be in the same building as the Detroit Beer Company. The Sid.
Oh, okay.
Sid Gold.
Yeah.
Sid's Gold does the karaoke.
Yeah.
You're in the same building as the. Well, not quite the same building, but like your windows face the windows of, like, your buildings share the back alley of the Monarch Club.
Oh man.
And you're, you know, on the same block as Detroit is the New Black, the Shinola Hotel, and that new Hudson development. The Hudson building is going up 1 block away. So you could not be more walkable to everything.
There's some great retail there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Lip Bar is the fun retail right around the corner. Shinola.
Yep, there's a blow bar, blow dry, get your hair done, get all that stuff done. Library Collective isn't too far from there. They're right off of they're one of our best galleries in Detroit. So that's pretty awesome. Congrats. I love hearing that. If you're interested in getting into one of those properties, sending pictures out to your friends all over, and they think that you paid $4 million for it because you've got these great views and city skyline and water, and hey, it's even an international view. Give us a call, or you can go online to J. Taylor Associates, look us up. Jay can help hook you up with one of those. On the same time, we want to talk about other things. Affordable housing is one of them. We were talking the other day about what $150,000 gets you. And we talk about starter homes, you know, all over the country. And I think when we think of starter home, we think of 150, 175 to 225 maybe. And there just aren't any. There's really not a lot of inventory near any major urban areas, right, where there's a concentration of jobs and business and stuff like that. But as opposed to like in Oakland County, where 150,000 gets you maybe 900 to 1,000 square feet, possibly on a slab, maybe a crawl. That kind of money in Wayne County and Detroit,
It goes a lot farther.
Yeah.
It's fun to think about what 150 to 175, which I really think is the bread and butter first-time home buyer. You're just leaving the rental scene and you want to buy your first real estate purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Almost all of them say, I want to spend $1,000 a month.
Yep.
And so that $1,000 a month will get you right around that 150 to 175 range. And the comedy is, with interest rates as low as they are, it may actually get you closer to 200 than you think.
Mm-hmm.
So as you were sitting there shopping that 150 to 175 range for a first-time home buyer, keeping your payment below 1,000, I think you would be safe to tell your realtor at this point, hey, bump my number up to 200 because I think I can afford that now with interest rates as low as they are. So we talked about it last week. Cheap money means your dollars go further. Right now, they're lending with cheap money. But all that to say, there are 3 neighborhoods that I think that 150 to 175, maybe bumping to 200 because of the interest rates, you can still get an amazing first-time home. And when I say amazing, I'm saying if everyone else in the world is getting their first-time home buyer experience with a 2-bed, 1-bath, on a slab with 700 square feet, if right now you were to reach out to me and say, Jay, I want like a baller status first time home,
you will get that.
You'll get that. You know, I can think of 4 neighborhoods.
2 fireplaces, hardwood floors, high ceilings.
East English Village.
Okay, I'm there all the time.
Rosedale Park.
Mm-hmm.
Those 3 right off the bat get you east side, central, and west side beautiful homes. And then if you wanted to get more central than those 3, I think in those same price points you can still reach first-time home buyer price range in the North End. We talked about it last week.
Yes.
I think in the North End, you know, you may have to settle for not fully renovated to get the same baller status that close to downtown. but we're not talking unlivable. We're talking you're looking at a 50s kitchen remodel.
Oh
that
yeah, no,
hasn't
we're
been
talking about
touched.
pink bathrooms.
Pink bathrooms.
Yeah.
You know, the hardwood floors haven't been resurfaced in a while.
Probably going to have to put in an AC unit. Not the end of the world.
Didn't come with one, but you know, you can maybe add.
That's what I
an
mean.
option to
Like
that, yeah.
that's what I mean. Like people, you're not going to get everything, but you're going to get plenty, especially if it is a true starter home.
So let me say those three neighborhoods again, and then add the fourth. East English Village over by Grosse Pointe.
Mm-hmm.
That's a neighborhood in Detroit that you can still get nearly, you know, we'll just say 1,500 square feet with
Brick.
3 to 4 beds, 1.5 to 2 baths, brick with beautiful architectural details for under $200,000.
Absolutely.
You can do the same thing in the Grandmont Rosedale, specifically if you really want to go baller status, North Rosedale Park. And then the third neighborhood is that Bagley Martin Park area of the 48221 zip code.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you are willing to go for a larger home in a less renovated condition, you can do the same thing in the north end. And we're talking 2,000 square feet, 4 beds, 2 baths, under 200,000.
I'm telling you guys, you gotta give us a call here. You can call me at 248-464-1116, or you can call Jay.
313-410-1149.
Give us a call. We'll get you into one of those houses or a $1 million place. Or if you're just looking to get started on something even a little smaller, we're going to actually talk about the upcoming administration and what some economic experts and housing experts are calling the Biden bump, and what we hope will be a really good thing for the housing market and the economy in general, as well as just income equality and more equality in housing. If you want to give us a call today, if you've got questions, whether it's relevant to the exact topic or not, you can call us here at the studio, 313-355-6018. Again, if you want to call in, talk to Jay, talk to Heather about Detroit real estate, 313-355-6018. I just want to remind you, you are listening to Wjzz Cool TV, Motown Realty, real information about real estate for real people. So, you want to talk about the Biden bump, or do you want to talk about the investment issues in Detroit? Because I suppose one could complement the other.
Absolutely. I do feel like the number one conversation we should be having right now is what could a Biden administration do to inner city real estate?
Well, I hope I have. You want me to go ahead?
I'm asking you that question.
Okay.
What do you think will happen?
Well, if everything pans out the way that they are talking about it, I know it's really loud. It's really loud. There's a few things in the proposed with the new administration or the incoming administration, the president and vice president elect. We've heard it referred to as the Biden bump, primarily because, like everything else, the housing market loves stability, right? And even though we've had a killer couple years in housing, there has been a lot of backpedaling, and I think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors that goes on, and people say, oh, you know, you're booming in this and this and this. It's been a tough year for a lot of people. It's been a tough year, jobs changing, banks changing policies. So the putting the floor back into the American psyche, if you will, and there's people out there that'll argue with me, but putting the floor into the American psyche and kind of cutting down on the drama and lowering the temperature is definitely going to help the housing market. I think we're going to see a larger range of buyers coming out in bigger numbers and a lot more confidence. People that were renting or afraid to sell to move to something bigger, I think we're going to see a big change with that. So that just alone, just the stability, just not being, you know, under a barrage of tweets every day of, you know, picking fights with other countries and everything else. So that's one thing. The Biden bump is going to create an uptick, right? Because that stability, that uncertainty breeds stagnation. I also think tackling the vaccine distribution and really giving some confidence back into our public health divisions and our services, our sectors, renewing some faith in our government and the good people that work hard in our government is going to help. A lot of people have been really reluctant to move. They're afraid to catch something. They're afraid to show their homes. They're afraid to sell. They don't want strangers in their house. So I think that is also going to be a good thing.
Let me ask you this question. I'm so curious. Ben Carson was the
Yeah.
director of HUD.
Which clearly he's a brain surgeon, so I'm not sure why they made him.
Well, it's interesting. He was a presidential candidate,
Yeah,
wasn't he?
he's a very, very, very smart man.
Smart
Yes.
man. But as a presidential candidate and as a brain surgeon, putting him in charge of housing and urban development might be a weird stretch.
Well, it was. I mean, let's just be honest. Everyone knows the joke.
Tell me the joke.
Everybody knows the joke.
I don't know the joke.
The one African American in the administration they put on the HUD.
Okay, yep.
I mean, I didn't
Urban
make
development.
it up. I didn't make it up. I didn't say it, but I mean, you know, why wasn't he the Secretary of Education?
Well, because they had a very highly qualified person from Grand Rapids.
Oh,
for
wait, no, they weren't.
that. No, that's not why. The reason why is because they wanted somebody to carry the face of HUD that wouldn't surprise anyone, and it drives me nuts.
That's what I'm saying.
So we're looking at, in a Biden administration, he's appointing Marcia Fudge.
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked into any of the proposals that the administration is looking at doing?
You know what? The ones that are most notable, and I don't have a lot of detail. I've just been reading it. What would we say? We were at 36,000 feet. There is a plan and talk about $100 billion affordable housing fund. Now, I've said this before without you. People hear me say it all the time. Affordable is very subjective, right? To me, affordable also applies to anyone who's making $50,000 a year. Affordable has this almost like you know what? We actually have a caller.
Hopefully they're calling about something we're talking about.
Yeah,
Let's
that
find
would be really
out.
great. Hi, welcome to Motown Really with Jay Taylor and Heather Dell on Wjzz Cool TV. Who are we talking to?
My name is Will.
Hey, Will, how you doing today?
Hi, Will.
Pretty good.
Well, thanks for calling in. We were actually just discussing the current administration versus the upcoming administration and how that might affect the real estate industry. Tell me, what field are you calling from?
Financial services.
Oh, so you're all about money. You might speak right into this one. Will, we are talking about, will the confidence that is building around a COVID vaccine, will the confidence building around, maybe an election cycle that's finally over,
Sort of.
maybe for the third time.
For most of us.
In the financial world, are you seeing any stability regaining, any more of that shifting sand finally settling?
Well, up until the last couple of days when we had the latest jobs number, I would have said absolutely. It seems like the markets are expecting clear sailing ahead. Today's been a little bit of a mixed bag, and I think that there are worries that we could have stalled policy support in terms of another stimulus package, and I think that the market for a long time has had that kind of baked in. So, yeah, we could use some certainty around politics to kind of help smooth out what's in front of us for the rest of this year and certainly 2021.
I love the overlaps of the financial sector and real estate, because you guys actually buy and sell vehicles, REITs, that are purely speculating on the real estate world. How are those REITs trading right now?
Well, I couldn't give you specific numbers, but I will tell you that lots and lots of REITs that are publicly traded and available to
Will, I just want to, do you mind,
retail investors.
Will, I'm going to step all over you. Do you mind just clarifying for everybody listening and watching? Not everybody knows what a REIT is.
Oh, yeah, sure, absolutely. So REIT is an investment vehicle that retail investors can buy, and it stands for Real Estate Investment Trust. And the idea is that kind of like you buy a mutual fund or an exchange-traded fund with a basket of stocks, well, the Real Estate Investment Trust, or REIT as we call it for short, that's a basket of commercial real estate typically held for you. So instead of you going out and buying commercial rental properties on your own, commercial real estate on your own, you can buy a basket of it. Kind of thinking about diversification, owning lots of different things to spread your risk around in the real estate world of investing.
You just said a buzzword that I think is maybe indicative of how the REITs might not mimic the real estate world that we are more commonly speaking of, and that is the commercial world is really struggling with all of the leases that are not being honored and all of the commercial endeavors that are failing as a result of the government restrictions. Meanwhile, the average person has found a way to keep their home, and has, there's been a supply demand issue that's causing like residential values to rise while commercial defaults are at an all-time high. So are you seeing REITs not mimic the residential world right now?
Yeah, I would say lots of REITs have large commercial exposure and lots of retail commercial exposure, which we know has, traditionally been full of mom and pop and local businesses owning lots of that real estate. And like you said, tons of uncertainty as to the viability of those businesses going forward. And that's certainly hit the bottom lines of REITs, and cash flow and prices are moving downward as well.
This is all fantastic. I love it when people call in who know a lot more about a subject than I do. Isn't that the whole point of sharing information? We were gonna delve into the proposed affordable housing fund that the upcoming administration has outlined, and I was just before you called, I was saying to Jay, the idea of affordable is very subjective. It's not. I think it's been. I think when we hear affordable housing is almost pejorative at this point, because we think of rent control, rent stabilization, Section 8, and the return to, when I say affordable housing, I'm referring more or less to quote unquote the middle class, right? So this $15,000 first-time home buyer credit they're proposing, and turning back the SALT tax policies. The residential real estate market looks like that's going to look on that very favorably. Do you think either of those things are going to help the financial markets as they relate to real estate?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you mean financial markets relating to real estate.
I guess I mean people personally, I guess is what I mean.
I mean, we're certainly advocates of people owning homes. And real estate, especially home ownership, has been a wonderful way for people to increase their overall wealth in America. And if we have the ability to get more people as first-time homeowners, I would certainly see that as being beneficial to the overall economics and the stability of the economics of the United States, because home ownership is that stepping stone into the middle-class world.
I think it's interesting. I just connected some dots in my head that I'm going to flesh out for the very first time with the public, and I'm excited, Will, to hear your take on this one. In your financial sector, you probably encounter a lot of life insurance salespeople, people who consider themselves financial advisors, though really all they do is sell life insurance. Am I correct?
I've run into a few of those folks, sure.
Yeah. So I imagine in the life insurance world, the process of buying a home is like a catalyst for their needing home life insurance, because up until they owned a home, if someone died in the family, there's no major debt to cover. It's just rent. But once you own the home, if you die, there's a default and a mortgage foreclosure, and like it's more catastrophic. And so there's this like catalyst where buying a home might be the instigator to cause a person to purchase for the first time life insurance. But I'm wondering if in your era of or in your field, because you're more in helping people set up legacy wealth, do you find that the process of purchasing a property actually pulls them out of your sector a little bit, because now they're spending their capital that they could have invested into larger, trades and larger stock purchases and larger allocations in their portfolio? They're now pulling all of that to actually do a real estate purchase.
It depends on the person's financial situation. If they're a first-time home buyer and they're trading liquid investments that I'm managing in order to create a down payment and move into something that's less liquid, yeah, sure, that has a ramification, and it certainly, I think, is a trigger point, as is having children and getting married. People start to pause and consider the risk side of investing and asset ownership. And so, I've purchased homes and refinanced homes in my lifetime, and now the banks and the mortgage lenders are savvy enough to send the life insurance opportunities direct mail to your house.
That's awesome.
And oddly enough, they always cover your mortgage that's outstanding. So they've definitely got on that bandwagon as well.
Well, do you mind just again for we have a wide range of listeners, a lot of them just getting started and everything. Do you mind just giving us um, a quick explanation of liquidity? A liquid asset versus not a liquid asset, because a lot of people will say to me, I don't understand what that means. I don't understand what I'm supposed to do. I want to buy a house. I'm saving for a down payment. When they say, what's my liquidity? What does that mean?
Mm. Yeah, it's a great question. Right, we're using jargon here. We're using jargon that not everyone can connect with. So
Which is
liquidity
great,
just
but we're a
means,
teaching program too, yeah.
yeah. This is good education. So liquidity, when someone refers to it, is how quickly can the thing that you own be converted to cash? So the most liquid asset is cash itself, right? You can walk into any store as long as the store is open and the state allows it, and you have your mask on, right? All those caveats. You can walk in with dollar bills in your hand or a debit card, and you can transact things on a daily basis, moment to moment. And if you move into less liquid assets, and let's talk about things that you could buy, like a stock or a bond. You could buy those, but when you go to sell them, you can't get the cash right away. There's a time to settle that, and so those are less liquid than just cash and dollar bills.
What is the amount of time to go from a stock in your portfolio to cash in your pocket?
Settlement for stocks and exchange traded funds is 2 days plus the day that you traded. So if I traded today, it's Thursday, Friday, Monday, I'll have my cash.
All right,
it's
so based on the weekend, it could be what feels like almost a week to get your money, but it's really just 3 business days.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Business days only.
Which is why we say housing is a great asset, but it doesn't have it can be liquid, but it doesn't have the timing, the liquidity
of a house always is the closing to like market resale.
Could be 4 months, could be 5 months, could be a year. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
It's harder to liquidate those assets. Those are illiquid or less liquid.
And the least liquid asset would be a retirement account?
Well, I would say it depends on how old you are. Those are pretty liquid for folks who are over 59 and a half and can start taking withdrawals. I would say the least liquid types of assets are ones that are exclusive to the ultra wealthy, limited partnerships.
Like racehorses.
Private equity. Racehorses, yeah, yachts.
Contemporary art.
They're illiquid because there's a small market and it's a long period of time. Sometimes you're required to stay in for a certain period of time. But for the average individual investor, if you think about things that you have to hold for a particular period of time, and houses, those are hard to liquidate because there's a certain limited amount of market for it. All those things move down the liquidity train, and so the less liquid something is, the longer it takes for you to convert that asset into cash. That's how I think about it.
Well, I would assume that a unstable and a market like today, where a property may lose value through the winter or lose value due to a certain political, instability, that the liquidity of something also involves potential risk that in the process of trying to sell it, the value might drop. A stock that's worth $100 today might be worth $90 tomorrow, and you lost 10% of your value. But a home that was worth $300,000 today and is only worth $270 tomorrow also lost 10% of its value. And that sort of instability is what we started our conversation about. Like with all of the fear and uncertainty of COVID and politics, we're sitting here looking at a pretty scary market. And I'm guessing your industry and ours is very similar like that. Do you find people asking you whether or not they should buy or sell today?
Yes, people think that my part-time job is predicting the future, and
Ooh.
I cannot do it.
I have a magic 8-ball. You want to shake the magic 8-ball?
I have a coin.
Yeah,
we could flip it.
I often will tell folks that I'm working with that I cannot predict the future, but that does not mean we can't make a plan for it.
Yeah.
Just because we don't have certainty doesn't mean that we can't have a backup plan for the unpredictable circumstances that might occur. And I would argue that having a plan is really going to put you ahead of most of the general public in terms of whether that's buying a house or investing for your retirement or planning for your kids to go to school in the future. It's all has a lot of unknown risks at this point in time.
Will we, just real quick, I want to remind everyone that you are watching and listening to WJZZ Cool TV. This is Motown Realty, real information about real estate for real people. Jay Taylor and I'm Heather Dell. Will, did you actually have a question before we jumped all over you to mine you for all of your information that was in relation to what we were discussing when you came on board?
Oh, well, I would be curious, talking local real estate, and I'm a person who's a homeowner in the city of Detroit, and what do you see as the challenges that the city real estate world is going to face in the future? Because we've had a pretty amazing run here in the last few years in terms of values in the city, but do you foresee that going higher for longer, or are we going to have a little bit of a tail off in that extreme growth that we've experienced in the last few years?
Well, it's a good thing you called somebody with the ability to predict the future. Unlike you, I can tell people exactly what will happen.
Yeah, we're going to leave here and go buy lottery tickets.
It's interesting that you asked that question, because I do think it's going to be different for different sectors. I think there will always be a market for affordable housing, and again, we use that term in the most broad sense. When you are living in Ferndale, affordable housing is slightly cheaper. When you're living in Birmingham, affordable housing is slightly cheaper. Like, it's always, what is the discounted real estate for the market that I'm living in?
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of it, as a Detroit resident, Will, you'll know this, that Detroit real estate is in fact cheaper than most of the surrounding real estate. So we will always be the hub and the mecca for affordable housing. So anytime that there's financial crisis surrounding Detroit, Detroit will be the catch-all. If you're struggling to find a 3-bedroom in Ferndale for under $150,000, you can find it in Detroit. If you're struggling to find a 4-bedroom in Birmingham for under $600,000, you'll find it in Detroit.
I always say, people come down, just come 4 or 5 miles down Woodward,
and you'll find a cheaper house.
and you'll find a house that is so beautiful, and the taxes are at such a rate that you can send your kids to private schools if that's an issue. Yeah.
And so for that reason, I do think we're going to always find that in certain sectors, the housing crisis will not be as scary as it will be in others. I also think that there's these two competing, and Will, I'm going to let you weigh in on this after I say my piece, but there are two indicators. There is a supply-demand issue that will currently be in favor of sellers because there's not enough homes out there and there's buyers still wanting them, and the supply and demand balance is putting the power in the hands of the seller. So even though we're in a financial crisis and the jobs report is dire and people's pockets feel sort of empty, like, there is still a supply-demand issue causing home prices to be inflated. But there's a separate question around, and this is the piece that is hard to predict what will happen, the percentage of homeowners whose mortgages are more than 90 days delinquent is getting higher and higher every month. And so there's this potential for hundreds of thousands within our area to need to sell their home to avoid foreclosure. So if we're currently looking at a supply-demand issue in favor of sellers, if all of those homeowners decide at the same time, well, rather than catch up with my mortgage payments because I'm 90 days or 180 days delinquent, I'll just sell the home, pay off my delinquency, and keep the profit because the market looks great. I can sell my home for $50,000 more this year than last year. Why not sell it? If 100,000 people all decide the same year to do that, what will happen to the supply-demand issue? It'll cross the other way, and now the power is in the hands of the buyers because there's 100,000 homes for sale, and there's only 1,000 buyers, and so sellers are competing for the buyer's attention. So there's this question of how long will supply and demand stay in power of the sellers versus the buyers. I'm curious what you think, Will.
That's a complex question to throw my way. I don't know that I have any coherent answer for what you just asked, Jay, but I think that what you're describing is a lot of uncertainty around the topic that we were talking about before, is who's going to be in control of the pricing of the housing. Is that where it's going here? Because people are in forbearance or have been in forbearance?
Well, and will those people in forbearance have the cash in their pockets they need to make a 4-month payment all at once? will their mortgage company be generous enough to let them tack those 4 payments on the back end of their mortgage without getting underwritten? Like, there's all these questions.
Remind our listeners what forbearance is.
Wonderful. I would say anyone who currently owns a home was offered by their bank during the era of COVID to skip a mortgage payment or 2 or up to 6 without any penalty, no interest, no problems whatsoever. And then at the end of that 6 months, they were told you can either tack those 6 months onto the back end of your mortgage or pay them all off and keep your mortgage the way it is. And most of the banks were willing to do that without having to re-underwrite you as if you're getting a new loan. So I think if the banks continue that generosity to offer free skipped payments, with the only downside being you have to pay 6 payments more at the end, I think we're all in good shape.
Yeah, that seems like that would be the best equation for everyone involved, right? The borrower has that grace period where the money was tight, and so they can pay, but it's just going to take them longer to finalize the payments on the mortgage. So if they had a 30-year mortgage, they got a few extra months on it now, but they don't have to scrounge together cash that might be in short supply anyway due to their income changing through COVID-19 like you suggested. And for the banks, they don't have to go through all the administrative headache of re-underwriting someone and the risk that someone can't get approved now because maybe their income's changed. And then going back to the 08-09 housing crisis where banks owned lots and lots of properties due to foreclosures that they didn't want to own on their balance sheet. That took a long time to unwind. I don't think anyone wants to go back to that mess.
Well, and the beauty of it is the only person who loses in this scenario is the shareholder for that bank. Somebody who, for the last 6 months or 8 months, has not been seeing income from mortgage payments being made. And so the shareholder is like being told by the bank, we have to wait a year for all these forbearance payments to get caught up, and then we'll make profit again. So there's one group that is looking at this as a huge loss, but I think they are going to see a long-term benefit by not putting that bank through a foreclosure crisis.
Well, yeah, and I mean you have to remember too that the shareholders, you enter into that with your eyes open. Great risks, great rewards, right? Sometimes great risks are great risks. So I don't know, guys. I have a slightly different take on it. I think if you don't buy now, you're really in trouble because the whole psychology has changed, right? We've got all these people. Well, first of all, we got the COVID babies. Lots and lots of couples that are renting that want to buy a house, that buying in Macomb or Oakland County or someplace else is not feasible. So they're looking in Detroit. I'm hearing a lot about that. People are, we're having a baby in the spring. There's been a lot of reflection during this period. Yeah, I'm going to be the feel-good chick, sociology, women's studies for a moment here. But it's true, right? There's a lot of psychology behind the economy, behind the housing market, behind everything. And people are slowing down a little bit. They want to be closer to things that they can enjoy on a day-to-day basis because they're not running back and forth to the office. Some people are looking at the value of family more, maybe wanting to live closer to other generations. So I don't know. All the signs to me indicate, and then on top of that, I've got people in Birmingham, Bloomfield, Northwest Oakland County, the Lakes areas who don't want to have. They're like, I don't need this much house. I don't want this much burden. I want to lighten up. So while Jay's 100% correct about of course we don't know which way it's going to go. I don't think it's going to be a tremendous buyer's market for some time. I still think it's a seller's market.
Well, and everyone wants to be told that. And it's nice to have a good anecdote to share as well as statistics to back it up. I think it could go either way, but I agree with your optimism that it's not ill-founded.
Well, thank you.
Will, I really want to say thank you for calling. Oh, you have a question. Go ahead.
Sure. One more question kind of related to what was just discussed here. Do you think that a tipping point in the direction of catalyzing buyers could be that we have historically low mortgage rates still? And it seems like the government is likely to keep interest rates low for quite a while, and that could be good for the buyers, couldn't it?
Well, and we were talking about that right before you called, and that is what a person can afford today is 20 to 30% more than what they could afford 2 years ago with the same budget, because interest rates are so low, their dollar can afford more. You know, every time that you spend $1 in real estate, thanks to that awful amortization schedule, you're only getting about half of it to land on principal, and or even less. And in that scenario, a person today who wanted to buy a first-time home is going to be able to afford 50% more than a person who did the same 2 years ago. Well, that 50% more is mostly eaten up in the growth of the real estate market. And so, yes, we will see in a buyer's market, with a lot of buyers having control over the pricing, the interest rates and the mortgage rates will have very little to do. Like, if they're in control of the market, they will just offer the least amount possible to win the home. But in a seller's market, if the seller can demand whatever price they want, the biggest indicator of whether or not the buyer can still afford it is whether or not the bank will strike a deal with them. And down at 2.25%, yeah, they can afford it. It's a very
outstanding.
Yeah, no, it's a good perspective to have, that the mortgage rates might continue to push the balance in favor of the sellers for a little while.
And Janet Yellen, I mean, I don't know, Will, I don't know if you agree with me, but I feel really confident about Janet Yellen coming in the incoming administration. You know, I know there's a lot of people that are concerned about this switch and everything else, but when I found out that she was on board, I felt pretty good about it.
Yeah, she's a stabilizing force, I think, for good, based on her past, and seems very even-keeled, highly communicative. I think it's a great appointment.
Awesome.
Well, we're sorry that we took up so much of your time, but man, you are an amazing asset for all of our listeners. Thank you for lending your advice.
No pun intended.
Oh, asset, yes. Before you
Thanks
go,
for having me on. I enjoyed my time. Sure.
Is there any, if a person was sitting there holding $2 to $3 million of investable wealth and they were looking for somebody to, help them know which vehicles to invest those in, is there a way they could get a hold of you, or a website they could find you on?
Certainly. Would love to speak to anyone in a situation like that, or anyone who just maybe is looking for some guidance and help. You can Google Verity Wealth Partners. Our website is veritywp.com. It's VERITYWP.com. We're a local based Detroit registered investment advisor.
That is awesome.
Thank you.
Will, thank you for calling in.
Thanks for the time.
Have a great day and happy holidays.
So, Heather.
Yes.
I'm curious to know.
Let me just throw the phone number out one more time. Do you mind? You're listening to Motown Realty. Give us a call, 313-355-6018, if you have a question. We'd love to talk to you today. You're listening and watching Wjzz Cool TV. Yes, Jay.
Well, so I'm just curious, from that conversation with Will, do you have any, nuggets that stuck out to you that maybe a person who was listening wouldn't have caught or noticed because they don't have the same perspective that you have?
Jeez. I feel like this is a trick question.
It's not.
It's not a trick question?
No, just what were your takeaways from that maybe if you were to distill them, somebody else out there would learn from you because they didn't know how incredibly intuitive Will was?
I mean, pass.
All right. So, personally, as I'm listening to Will talk, and he's describing the interplay between the financial sector and the real estate sector, I think the one that really stood out to me was, here's an expert in finance saying, I can't predict the future. And in the real estate world, I can guarantee that I can't predict the future. And yet in both spheres, the number one questions we field are, should we buy or should we sell? What should I do right now? And I feel like the real answer that surfaces, regardless of what field you're in, and outside of real estate, it probably is the same. What do you need to accomplish your goals today? And then how do you mitigate the fallout of those decisions? If today you really need cash, then sell an asset. If today you really need an asset, then spend your cash. But in some scenario, in real estate, you shouldn't be worried too much about what could happen 6 months from now. If today you need to buy a home, don't wait 6 months to buy it. Because we don't know what's going to happen. So accomplish today's goals. Don't accomplish 6 months goals.
I think the thing that I wasn't sure how to articulate it, but the primary thread that we all shared on that in that conversation was that none of us have this terror of the incoming administration. You know, there's a lot of people that think, oh, everything's going to crash and this and this and this, but he's a money guy. We're real estate people. I understand some other markets peripherally. Stable is good.
Yeah.
Stable is good. I don't think it's a bad time to buy a house because you think that things might take a turn for the worse. Everything, the way the cards are being laid out, including the cabinet selection, the administration that's coming in, and it was nice to hear a financial guy weigh in on that as well. So stability is a good thing. Thanks for watching and listening. This is Wjzz Cool TV, Motown Realty. Real information about real estate for real people with Jay Taylor. I'm Heather Dell. You can call in with questions today, 313-355-6018. We were talking about the Biden bump, the new administration. We had some excellent financial advice from Will. And I think at the end of the day, we all came to the conclusion, and you just put it most succinctly, that it doesn't really matter what the markets are doing. You have to do what's best for you.
Well, and I find it so funny that if you think 2008, when there was an election, in 2012 when there was an election, in 2016 when there was an election, in every election, regardless of which side won and which side lost and who's happy and who's sad, you can guarantee the sad people foretold doom and terror. And the people who won foretold prosperity and success. And in neither situation, no matter who's in power, did the worst that could possibly happen, or did the best that could have possibly happen. No, I fully mean this. So, like, we have a current administration that's about to expire. And for the first 3 years of his administration, as everyone foretold doom and gloom, he actually carried America through amazing prosperity. And if the large mire of his, reputation will be this last year of how he treated COVID and how the economy really took a tank, it did everywhere. Globally, there isn't a single country that can look back at their COVID experience and say it was all roses and potpourri. Like, it's been awful globally.
It has.
So the doom and gloom isn't necessarily as a result of his administration as much as it was nowhere near as profitable and prosperous as he foretold,
right.
Nor was it as bad as the enemy said it would be.
Right.
Rewind the tape to an Obama administration. Never in that time did he do all the things that the Republicans thought he would. Did not take away their guns, did not take away their liberties, did not take away anything. And at the same time, all of the people who were in Camp Obama didn't get to see all of their goals realized either. That there's this balance of power between Republican and Democrat that will always stabilize the extremes, and the worst that is foretold never happens, nor is the best.
As long as the process of democracy is allowed to
Due
function
course.
And play out the way it was intended.
Yep. And so I look at this and say, for a person who is foretelling doom and gloom of a Biden and Harris administration, just look at the lens of history. It has never been as bad as people foretell. It'll be fine. It'll be awesome. And in fact, the stability that you talked about will still be there because we do live in a democratic republic that has stability as its foundation. So what I don't want is for us to tell people don't buy or don't sell because of this instability, when in fact, it looks unstable right now. COVID has been awful. But as we come out on the other side of that, people still have jobs. People still have assets. Real estate is still trading hands, and
credit
we
is
can
still
be
available.
Yeah, we can be a part of that.
Yeah. I just wanted to. We had talked about. You had asked me what I thought the incoming administration would do for urban areas, and there was a lot of there were a lot of initiatives with the Trump administration, the opportunity zones, the neighborhood enterprise zones, and there was a lot of great intent behind those opportunity zones, and some of this is kind of highfalutin tax and investment and development stuff. But at the end of the day, I'm not sure how much of that actually really worked out well for the individual neighborhoods where those areas were. I kind of feel like there was more. I kind of feel like the communities. I'll take the snowflake side of it. I kind of feel like it didn't benefit the communities and urban development as much as it said it would. So I think the administration coming in with this affordable housing program, the first-time home buyer funding, I think they're going to level the playing field a little bit more. I don't necessarily know that it's going to be a better or worse time to sell, but it's not going to be a worse time to sell.
Well, and it's interesting to think through what you're describing, and that is any tax incentive or purchase incentive or government subsidized incentive will always get used by both the target audience and the shrewd businessman. You know, I love the idea that if you're smart enough with your taxes,
you don't pay any.
Meanwhile, if you don't know how to do that and you hardly made any money that year, what little amount you made, you get taxed on.
Yeah, but meanwhile, too, who's going to pay to fix the roads and put out the fires and police the traffic?
You sure need taxes.
Yeah.
And so what I'm getting at here is a lot of these incentives, and I love like the opportunity zones that exist in Detroit right now, which allow, you know, entities to create businesses in struggling areas, and they can do so capital gains free for a while. And there are opportunity zones all over Detroit. The people who utilize and leverage those opportunity zones didn't even need the incentive to begin with. They were already flush. They were just smart.
You said, I was trying to figure out a nice way to say it. I don't care for the whole like rich get richer and the poor get poorer. It's trite. It's boring. It's not entirely accurate. But I don't necessarily know that the urban revitalization programs of the current administration were as effective as a lot of people thought they were or perceive that they are. So if you're worried about the quote-unquote inner city going down the tubes with the new administration, I gotta say you're wrong there too. And if you don't believe me, come down here. Come see us. Come to Detroit. Come visit us. Drive around. Look at houses. Look at what's going on. It's going to be just fine.
Yeah, look at what Detroit did from 08 to 16.
Oh my God.
It's just incredible to watch. And so
with bankruptcy in the middle.
In the middle of that, it still had a recovery and a resurgence. And so we're going to see that again. Yeah. And I do know that when you have a program like HUD that makes available dollars for first-time home buyers in inner city areas, there's an organization like NACA, which allows people through Bank of America to get access to funds that normally wouldn't get.
Remind our watchers and listeners what that is, please.
Well,
I know, I'm like the school teacher. I'm sorry.
NACA, you'll actually have to tell me what the NACA stands for.
Well, I don't know.
Okay, neither do I. I'm sure it's Neighborhood
Association
for
something. Yeah,
Choice
that's fine.
Award. No,
yep.
It has to do with making funds available for people that prior banks would have turned down. Low credit scores, low assets for closing costs. So the FHA loan exists for borrowers like that, but the NACA program was done even in addition because of predatory lending done by Bank of America. They now have this $13 billion program available. And so those sort of programs will always exist. And if anyone is sitting here in the city of Detroit saying, I want to buy, I feel like it's all getting priced out for me, I really encourage you to call Heather or myself so that we can talk to you about the programs that are available so that you, as a home buyer in Detroit, can afford to not have to pay rent anymore. Yeah.
Or get yourself in a better situation. Do whatever it is you need to do. Yeah.
We were told we need to wrap up here, so apparently we just wasted a whole nother hour on the air. But goodness.
I don't think it was a waste. I thought
it
was pretty great.
Awesome. It was awesome. But Heather, thank you for having me on here.
No, thanks for joining us. The Motown Realty Show, Jay Taylor, myself, Heather Dell, on Wjzz Cool TV. Listening, podcast, the whole thing. I'm dating myself. Join us next week at 4 o'clock. I'm not even sure what we're going to talk about. We're running out of time to even talk about what we're going to talk about.
We never finished what we slate for the hour.
I know. We need more time. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a great weekend.
Bye.